Right. I hope today I am a little better, but still my throat is not okay. But let's continue. This today we are starting with the next chapter, which is about planning the projects. Right. So while planning the projects, what topics are we going to cover? Are there are various areas of planning. Actually, we have to look at it from the predictive point of view, from agile point of view, and also from the hybrid point of view, because planning is different for each of these methods. As far as the predictive is concerned, as we understand, we will we have 5 process groups: initiation, which we have already studied in the last lecture; planning, which we are covering from today onwards; execution; then monitoring and control; and ultimately the closing. These are the 5 process groups we have to follow when we are using predictive method. Why? Because in predictive method, we have pretty much clear requirements, and we do upfront planning for everything. And until and unless all the requirements have been catered for in the planning, we do not proceed ahead. Whereas in Agile, we don't wait for all the requirements to be gathered. The requirements are open all the time. Customer can anytime add any new requirements. But while we are receiving more requirements, we continue with the execution of the project, like, in various iterations. And as you understand, hybrid is a method where we have uh, partially we are predictive and partially we are agile. Anyways, talking about the predictive method, if you remember, but we talked about the 49 processes, 5 process groups, and 10 knowledge areas. Do you remember that? Do you remember that we
Process group.
discussed? Yeah,
Yes, sorry, just checking my notes. There's the planning phase. I remember the
the
PDF
big
or
chart, big
the
chart.
picture that you have.
Exactly.
There's the planning phase at the top, and then
Yes.
there's the requirements gathering. Sorry, wait, initiating,
Yeah.
planning,
Exactly. Exactly. I am referring
executing.
to that. And on the next slide, we said all these management plans which are being created during planning for each knowledge area, all of those management plans are actually called the subsidiary plans. They actually are part of the project management plan. Project management plan is a higher level plan, is a senior plan, and all other management plans of the scope of schedule for cost, all the knowledge areas, their management plans will be included in the project management plan.
Okay.
Moreover, we also emphasized the difference between a management plan and a detailed plan. Do you remember that? What
The
is a management plan?
management plan. So what is a management plan?
Yep.
Um, it's how they will. It's how they will execute. It's the guidelines on how they will execute.
Well, not only execute, management plan tells us the broad guideline.
Mm.
How are we going to do every process of the planning? How
Mm.
we are going to do things in the execution, monitoring and control and close. So this is a consolidated guideline, right? But this is not the detailed plan. Considering these guidelines, we create various documents, various tables, various charts, and based on that, we execute. So basically, This is the guideline provided for doing that plan, for executing that plan, for planning that thing. So planning, execution, monitoring, and control, and closing. This is the consolidated guideline for everything.
Okay.
But one thing you must remember, the management plans like the scope management plan or the schedule management plan, these are part of the larger plan, which is called the project management plan, and they all are the guide. For example, in the schedule management plan, we do not know what activities are, what is going to be their schedule, how are they going to be linked together. This is not part of the schedule management plan, but it provides the broad guideline that, okay, when you are identifying the activities, you must keep these things in mind. When you are kind of establishing the relationship between activities, these things must be considered. So that kind of guideline is in the management plan, right? And all the management plan, which are called subsidiary management plans, are part of the larger plan, which is called the project management plan. So there are 10, 10 different management plans which are part of the project management plan. Then we have got in the project management plan another very important thing, which is called the baselines. How many baselines do we have?
Baselines. Um, okay, just
We have
checking.
10 knowledge areas, but do
So
we
10
have
also.
baseline for everything?
I think, I mean, is that possible that all of them will have baseline, because
Right,
some of
right.
them will not
So which
have
areas
baseline.
are more important and which should have the baseline?
Um, so perhaps the for sure the schedule should have
A baseline, yeah,
the the cost should have a baseline.
good. And
The
scope,
scope,
and
scope,
scope, yes.
the three should have a
So
baseline.
these three knowledge areas are considered to be the project objectives. You know, if anything changes in any other knowledge area, the ultimate impact is going to come either in scope or time or cost, right? So therefore, we don't need to baseline everything. We just need to baseline these three major project objectives: scope, time, and cost. So what is baseline? Baseline is the final approved version of planning for scope and for time and for cost. Final approved version, which is executable, right?
Mm.
So we
But
have all the guidelines in the subsidiary plans. We have all the final approved plans in the baselines. And in addition to that, we may have certain other components in the project management plan, like outside of the knowledge areas, we have got a change management plan, which is not any of the knowledge areas. It is a consolidated plan how a change can be brought into the project, no matter what knowledge area it is. So one standard procedure is developed for bringing the change into the plan. Second is the configuration management plan. Configuration management plan is a kind of a record, a historical record of uh, every document which has been created and amended over time. The historical record includes all the amendments and history of that document. So this is the configuration management plan. Like you develop a document and then you amend it, so it becomes version 2. Then you again amend it, it becomes version 3. So this versioning mechanism is part of configuration management. So this is another management plan, which change management plan and configuration management plan, which are not included in the standard knowledge areas. Now, what are the subsidiary plans?
These ones are the 10 plans that
10
are part of
plans.
the
And
project management plan.
right. So one we have 10 knowledge areas. One is integration. Integration plan is called project management plan. That is the father of them all. Rest we have got 9 knowledge areas. Now, how do we have 10 management plans? What is the 10th management plan?
So these were the wait. So for example, the WBS, the cost management plan. Hold on, sorry. List.
Yes. Okay, start from the beginning. The very first one is
Scope management
scope management plan. Now,
plan.
interestingly, scope management plan doesn't only have the scope management plan, it has two management plans. Okay.
The requirements
Exactly.
management.
Requirement management plan, scope management plan, and then remaining all of it. So that makes 10 of them. Then there are two change management and configuration management. And then we have got uh, the various methods, whether it is hybrid or predictive, selection of a methodology and the approach and the life cycle. This guideline is also provided in additional components.
Okay.
Now,
That's
all of this is put into one project management plan, and that is happening only in a predictive project. So you can see here, this is the list which I just discussed with you. This is all the contents of the project management plan. It has got all the subsidiary management plans, which include scope, requirement, both are in scope, then schedule, cost, quality, resource, communication, risk procurement, and stakeholder engagement. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then we have got three baselines: scope baseline, schedule baseline, and cost baseline. Then we have additional components, that is change management plan, configuration management plan. Uh, Performance measurement baseline is nothing but a unified place where all the three baselines are put together. So when we want to refer to all three of them together, we call them performance measurement baseline. Then we have got project life cycle. What different types of project life cycles are there to choose from? What are the various development approaches to choose from? And then are the management reviews. How the management reviews are going to be conducted. So this all of these things could be part of your project management plan. Now the interesting thing here is uh, when we start planning, the first thing we start doing is to start developing the project management plan. But until and unless all the subsidiary management plans are created, the project management plan cannot be called complete. Therefore, project management plan, though, is the very first thing we start in planning, but this is the very last thing which is completed in planning. Because there should be all the management plans created, there should be all the baselines created, there should be all the additional components created, and only then our project management plan will be finalized. Our planning will only end after the project management plan has been consolidated. Agreed?
Um. Yep. Agree.
Okay, then we have got project documents. So one thing was the project management plan, the other thing was project documents. If you remember, I had shown you a list of all the project documents. Project documents are those documents which are created during the process of planning for calculation purposes, charts, graphs, and a lot many other things, but they are leading to a baseline. Like we are more concerned about scope baseline, schedule baseline, and the cost baseline. But while we are developing the schedule baseline, we have to identify the activities, we have to act- estimate the duration of activities, we have to we have to do the network diagramming, we have to do the critical path, we have to do develop the schedule. So all of these things are ultimately leading to the baseline, schedule baseline. But all these interim documents are necessary to be created, but they are not necessary to execute the project. For execution of the project, I just need the schedule baseline, scope baseline, and the cost baseline. You understand this point? For execution purposes, baselines are sufficient to have. But while we are creating those documents, the baselines, we actually develop a lot many things. All of those things are called project documents, right? So documentation and content created by the team to plan and manage the project effectively, that is your project document. Some documents are project artifacts which need to be maintained and then archived at the end of the project. Now, how do we maintain an artifact or a document? By configuration management, by allocating version numbers and keeping a history of that. That is the job of the configuration management. And how do we archive at the end of the project? We submit all of these documents to the organizational archive where they are stored for future reference to the projects in future. Get that? So what all could be the project documents? This is a comprehensive list of all the possible project documents which could be created in all the 10, in the planning of all the 10 knowledge areas. It covers everything, but these are not the baselines. These are not the final documents. These are the project documents which are created to develop the final document. And final documents are three baselines: scope, schedule, and cost, which is there in the project management plan and which is what will be executed. These documents were created during the planning, but they are not required to execute the project because uh, we have the schedule, we have the cost baseline, and the dates and money which we require, and the scope is already established. So that information is enough to execute a project. This data is preserved for the purposes of future reference. Maybe we have to change something. There is a change request, and when we change something, these documents will be changed and amended, and ultimately the baseline could be amended. So whenever we have to re-baseline, we will have to revise these documents as well. But they have just archival value. This is not, nothing of it is executable. I hope you get that. Okay. Let us talk a little bit about collaborative planning because in adaptive or agile or for that matter hybrid also, we do use collaborative planning. Now, what do we mean by collaborative planning? Like in Agile, we have a product owner who decides the objectives according to customer needs and wants. That means product owner is just like a sponsor. And he actually gives out the charter, which we call, in Agile, we call it the project vision statement. You want to call it as a charter, no problem. But in Agile, we usually call it a project vision statement. And product owner is actually behaving like a sponsor. So he decides the objectives according to customer needs and wants, and team that executes that work and helps product owner plan the work. And how does a product owner plan the work? That is, he's maintaining or managing the product backlog. Product backlog is place where all the requirements are continuously being added to, right? Then we prioritize those requirements, and for each iteration, we pick the topmost items as per our capacity. Team members, because they actually conduct the project, and because it is not an autocratic setup, there is no project manager, there is a role we call our team lead. If you want to call it project manager, I don't mind, but that is classically referred to as a team lead or a scrum master in Agile. So this person is just a servant leader who facilitates the team, who removes the impediments and obstacles from the path of the team. But the interesting thing about it is the team lead does not order them around. He can't tell them what to do and what not to do. But he can facilitate, he can guide, but cannot order. As far as the decisions about the work is concerned, how the job is to be done, this is all planned by the team themselves. Why? Because teams are self-organizing. They are specialists of their job, and the team decides amongst themselves how are they going to go about it. Because they are planning one iteration at a time, so it is not a very difficult job. They are not, unlike the predictive project, we are not planning everything upfront, but we are only planning for one iteration, which is comparatively much, much simpler. So team members are local domain experts in integration management. How work will be planned and completed is what the team managers, team members, they collaborate to do it. That is exactly why we call it collaborative planning. Now, because hybrid does also have an element of agile in it, therefore, this slide also fulfills the requirement for a hybrid project. This is how we can differentiate between the three kinds of approaches, the methodologies, the predictive, hybrid, and adaptive. Adaptive is agile. So you see, requirement specification in predictive projects is defined in specific terms before the development, meaning we complete all the planning, freeze the plan, create the baselines, and then move ahead with our execution. Whereas in Agile, we are elaborating frequently during delivery, meaning requirements are pouring in, and once we are done with our first iteration, then we will review the remaining work, and out of that, we will pick up the highest priority items. We will plan them, we'll do them, and then we move to the next iteration. And this way, iteration by iteration, we will do small planning, not the whole plan. Outcome of a predictive project is usually delivered at the end of the project in a predictive. In Agile, we are delivering something after every iteration. So our delivery is more frequent and the customer, our stakeholder, is more engaged and involved in this case. Hybrid also follows a similar kind of a procedure, but there is an outline plan and still we are working like Agile at the bottom. Change. Predictive does not encourage change. Therefore, change is kind of a very strict process. Yes, I do understand that in any kind of a project, there will be changes. But change in a predictive project is very well controlled. Only the allowed changes find their place in the project. Therefore, they have made it a very difficult process, a very complicated process. Change is kind of not really encouraged that flow because they want to exercise more control on everything. That's why they don't agree to make any changes except when it is very necessary. On the other hand, in adaptive change, we don't have a change control procedure at all. We don't have to seek permission for change also. If the customer wants a new requirement added to the project, it can be mutually decided between the product owner and the customer, and that thing will be added to the product backlog. And whenever its turn comes, it will be picked up by the relevant iteration and they will do that job. Stakeholder involvement in predictive, yes, it is there, but at major milestones, right? We are not engaging the stakeholder more often than that. Whereas in a hybrid, it is regular involvement, say after every month or after every 2 months, we sit down with on a meeting with the stakeholder. That is, we are regularly engaging the stakeholder. But the interesting thing about Agile is it is a continuous engagement. So while we are doing one iteration, we are interacting with the stakeholder. And only when they accept that output, then this stakeholder engagement will move on to the next iteration. Risk and cost control, again, because we are having detailed planning in predictive. So this is mostly known consideration because we have to plan for the risk and cost in planning. Whereas in Agile, it is done as requirements and constraints emerge. Whenever there is a problem, we will solve it there and then. Okay. This is a question for you. Read it and answer it.
Mm. Isn't it wait, I cannot remember, OPA?
OP is organizational process assets. You are right. Okay. Now let us move to the next topic, which is scope. Now, this is a very long chapter because we have to talk about all the 10 knowledge areas, right? So it will be taking some time. As far as scope is concerned, this is the first knowledge area which is to be planned. Although we start with a project management plan, and then we start developing the scope. But project management plan is incomplete until scope, time, cost, and all other knowledge areas have been planned. That is exactly why I said project management plan is the first document which gets started during the planning, and it is the last document which is delivered on. In the meanwhile, all other 10 knowledge areas are planned, their management plans are created, their project documents are created, and all that is being done under the scope. But anyways, in scope, we are going to first develop something. What should we develop in the beginning of scope? What is the first thing we do in any knowledge area? We develop a management plan, right? So, what are the management plans in scope?
It's the 10 management plans that you shared earlier. The scope management, requirements management, schedule, etc. Or
Yeah, no, in scope, we have got two plans:
a
scope
scope and
management plan
requirements.
and
Scope and
requirement,
requirements.
right? This is
Yeah.
about the scope. Rest, every knowledge area has its own management plan. That we'll get to it later. But in the beginning, we create the scope management plan and the requirements management plan. Why do we create a requirements management plan? Because requirements which we get from the customer may have a change of mind and they may want certain requirements to be changed. Therefore, it is different from scope. Requirements is just defining what they want, what the customer wants. So those requirements must be thoroughly managed and maintained, and therefore we should have a separate management plan for requirements. Once the requirements have been established, that will define the scope of the product, what is to be created. Exact specifications are decided, and that is your scope of the product. So scope of the product is what all features and functions should be included in the product. What should be their specifications? What should be the other requirements about the product? That is the product scope. That does not tell us how to do it. It just tells us what to do. Now, once you are clear about the scope of the product, now you can start developing the scope of the project. Project scope talks about what all should be done to complete the requirements. So work is involved here. So project scope and product scope, these are the two things we need to develop. This is called scope statement. Scope statement includes the product scope, the project scope, and our approaches and outline plan and things like that, all regarding the scope. So now that I have briefly described to you what is a project scope and a product scope, now let us look at the Shoppe Lifestyle Center, our case study, and see what are the definitions of these terms. Like what is product scope, what is project scope, and then what is a fixed scope and what is flexible scope. So these things are. So this is the project scope. Because we are talking about the case study, Shoppe Lifestyle Center is our project. And the scope of this project is to complete our construction project and engage a sales and marketing project to fill it with tenants over time. So this is not talking about how to do it, it is talking about what to do. So what to do is your project scope, and how to do is your product scope. Sorry.
Sorry, just to
No,
repeat,
sorry.
what to do is the product scope.
Yeah. What to do is the product scope, and
Oh,
how to do it is the project scope. So
okay.
project scope uh, is uh, is our approach. How do we address it? And product scope is what are the agreed requirements and specifications and functionalities to be included in the project.
Okay.
Then we have got fixed scope. Scope of construction project is fixed. In Shoppe Lifestyle Center, in our case study, the scope of construction project is fixed. I mean, that phase of the project is completely predictive in nature. It is based on finalized blueprints, building compliance requirements with little room for change. We do not encourage change in a predictive project. And if at all we have to allow it, it is a very thorough process. Rather, we discourage change. If we talk about agile project or adaptive project, that is not fixed. Everything is not planned up front, but it is flexible. Means new requirements can keep pouring in and we can keep amending our plan accordingly. So this is flexible. Okay, what do you know about these two terms? Progressive elaboration and rolling wave planning.
I actually only hear this for the first time. So, not really familiar with them past terms.
What is the meaning of progressive elaboration?
Progressive. Meaning they, as the project moves on, let's say we just enter this, let's say we're at the second sprint, it's only at the second sprint that we flesh out the details for the requirements that need to be developed at that point. Like it's not like predictive where everything is super detailed upfront. If my understanding is correct for progressive elaboration, it's like by in pieces versus everything at the same time.
Because everything in a project may not be known upfront. Therefore, even if it is a predictive project, what we need to do is we need to plan whatever we know, and whatever we don't know, we will pend that till that data about that thing is available. And when we move ahead in the life of the project, we could further elaborate progressively over time.
Ah,
And over time, these requirements are well established.
okay, wait. So just to clarify once again, um, so this applies to both predictive and adaptive, and it's planning for
Yes,
what we know and add and what we don't know. Meaning we also make room or make time or
yes.
buffer for the what we don't know.
This concept of progressive elaboration and that of rolling wave planning apply to predictive, hybrid, and agile, all of them.
Okay. Okay.
Progressive elaboration is that as the things become clear to you, you keep elaborating them over time progressively. Whatever you know in the beginning of the project, you create a detailed plan of that much. But what do you don't know, you will have to wait for a certain time when that thing is clearer and when you can plan it. So you will plan those things later. That's why we divide a predictive project into phases. Maybe the first phase, we have got all the requirements and we are very clear about it. So we plan that much and we leave the planning of second phase on when the project phase one has been done and accepted. Then we can plan the second phase, do the progressive elaboration that way. So progressive elaboration is a strategic level concept of learning over time and adopting to that. This is called progressive elaboration. Now, what is rolling wave planning? Classically speaking, that is exactly same as the progressive elaboration, with a difference that progressive elaboration deals with higher level details, whereas rolling wave planning deals with lowest level of details. So that's why I call progressive elaboration as a strategic concept and rolling wave planning as a tactical concept. Like, you have a project with 5 phases. You can have a general understanding how this project will go on, but phase one is very clear to you. So you elaborate in much more detail about phase one. And once the phase one is completed, then you start deliberating on the phase two and so on. So as you move ahead in time, you will keep progressively elaborating. And that is a strategic level concept. Now, rolling wave planning is at the bottom level of activities. There are certain things we know and we can plan them down to the activity level. But there are certain things which are not known yet, and I can't expand on that. So I say, okay, I know how to construct this, I know how to construct this, but I don't know how to do a specific thing, which is so far not clear. So I would say this is my planning package, and when it comes out, uh, uh, we have to plan it. We go in a rolling wave fashion. We roll out this plan when required. So rolling wave plan is exactly the same concept, but at our lowest level, the tactical level, whereas the progressive elaboration is a strategic level concept. So these concepts, both of these concepts, progressive elaboration and rolling wave planning, they are applicable both to the adaptive environment or the predictive environment. Both ways we have this concept. But in agile, people slightly confuse it because they consider that uh, in predictive projects, the rolling wave planning is considered to be uh, at the lowest level of the data.
Wait. So for agile, agile already uses rolling wave planning.
We have already
Agile does follow rolling wave planning
oh,
always.
actually both follow rolling
Oh,
wave as well as progressive elaboration.
okay.
But how agile? adopts it is little different. That is, you see, in predictive project, our emphasis is on upfront planning. We try to plan as much as we can in the beginning. And if something cannot be planned, we will progressively elaborate on that, right? And if that thing is happening at the bottom level detail, I mean, within the activity, there are certain things which are to be known and which are not known right now. So we will wait at that tactical level and do the rolling wave planning whenever the data is available. That is how it acts on the predictive project. In an agile project, what we do is uh, we do not have a lot of work at upfront planning. The progressive elaboration happens when we develop a product roadmap and we create an outline plan or a roadmap on which we say that this project is going to have these major milestones and this is the life cycle of the project and things like that. So that is progressive elaboration in agile. When we are creating the roadmap, product roadmap, we are deciding on the releases, we are deciding on the size of iteration. This is all about the progressive elaboration. Now, as far as the rolling wave planning is concerned, that is but natural in agile. With every iteration, we will plan that iteration, right? And that is actually rolling wave planning. So we plan iteration by iteration. This is a video for showing you the difference between minimum viable product and minimum business increment.
Sorry, what's MBI? Minimum.
MBI is minimum business increment,
Okay, okay, okay.
and MVP is minimum viable product.
Okay.
So let's see this video. This explains it.
One of the cornerstones of Agile is to release incrementally. Build a small but complete piece, release it, learn from it, pivot if needed, and then do it again. But that's not all there is to it. What you build in each of these incremental releases depends on what your objective is. If you're trying to figure out whether a new product or service is viable, you probably should release a minimum viable product. A minimum viable product is often a prototype, where some functionality is simulated or even performed manually. The idea is to do just enough work to get something in front of potential customers and learn what they really want. Because a minimum viable product is an investment for discovery. If you're expanding or enhancing an existing product or service, you probably should release a minimum business increment. A minimum business increment is the smallest releasable chunk of value that makes sense from a business perspective. A minimum business increment is an investment for revenue. Minimum business increments offer several benefits. They add value for your customers. They help you determine if you're building the right thing. They help you figure out if you're building the right way. They give you a way to determine if what you're building is actually useful. And they enhance your ability to deliver value in the future.
Do you get some idea about it?
Yes, it's just so just to clarify again, if my understanding is correct.
Okay.
So minimum viable product, it's an investment for discovery. It's more to understand
Yes.
more what customers need or
Yes.
what.
A minimum viable product is like a prototype,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
It is to clarify the requirement. It is to show a result to the customer as if they can decide if this is all right. Like I am showing you a draft of what I am going to create, and you approve it, then I move ahead. So this is investment in discovery. if whatever prototype I have created, it is not really what the customer desires, they can say, okay, no, I don't want that. You do it again. But this is not the product. This is not the product. Minimum viable product is a kind of a interim product, is kind of a you know something to which will clarify future trend into it. This minimum viable product might not be usable for the customer, right? It is not part of the product at all, but
It
it
is
is
not
more
part
of
of the.
clarification of doubts.
Okay, okay, okay. And then the minimum business increment is the smallest releasable value, and it has to add
Yeah,
value.
yes. A minimum business increment is when we deliver something to the customer, which is a part of the final product, but it is not a prototype, it is a part of the final product, which, if possible, customer can even start using it right now. So by the end of my iteration, I may be delivering some business increments.
Okay,
The
okay.
project has just started, but we have delivered something which the customer can start using practically.
Ah, okay. And then um, there's one more thing because I think like in the context that I've been working on,
Mhm.
the MVP was actually the MBI, and then the prototype to clarify the requirement was the proof of concept. Like,
Yeah. Proof of concept is MVP. Yes, of course, you're right.
it's the same.
And MBI is something which is part of the product. It's not the full product, but the customer may start using it because this is completed. This portion of the product is completed and delivered to the customer, and it has generated the minimum business increment. They can actually start using it for their benefit.
Okay, okay. Understand. Okay, clear. Thank you, thank you.
Okay, as far as agile is concerned, the progressive elaboration is in the product roadmap, which I just mentioned. Product roadmap is like a timeline. Remember, I have shown you the timeline earlier. There is a starting point and there is an ending point. There is a straight line in between from start to end. That is a timeline. On this timeline, for a predictive project, I could show my phases, right? But in an agile project, I should not be concerned about the work. Because in agile project, we are more concerned about the product. So that's why we are creating a product roadmap. The timeline here is called the product roadmap. And that tells us that at what point in the life of the project are we going to deliver what to the customer, right? So that is a straight line showing the milestones and major deliveries from the project, which we call the releases. So release is a kind of equivalent word to the phase of predictive. In Agile, we don't have phases. We have uh, increments and we have releases. So releases basically are coming from our contract with the customer. They have desired that they should be delivered this much work at this point and this much work at that point. So basically, these are my release points where I can actually give some minimum viable product to the customer at that point in time. So we envision the overall plan for agile and create an outline timeline, and on that, we understand that it covers all the release points, it covers all other major milestones. If that is done, our product roadmap is considered complete. Moreover, we also decide while we create our product roadmap that how many releases are going to be there and what should be the size of our iteration. We have to decide on one size. Say you have decided it should be 2 weeks long. So no matter how complex the project is, we will work in iterations of 2 weeks continuously, one after the other. So it also displays product strategy and direction and the value to be delivered. It leads with the overarching product vision and uses progressive elaboration to refine vision. It uses these themes to provide structure and association. And last but not the least, it provides short-term and long-term visualization. Then we have milestones. Milestones are like dates, they're points when we have to deliver something to them. It could be a marker, it could be a prompt, and then we have to take the ownership of that. Who has created? Project manager has created, customer has created, who has created? A milestone list is all the major accomplishments of the project which are drawn on the timeline or the roadmap. So some of the milestones are mandatory and others are optional. The mandatory things are which are mandated by the contract. Like when we, in Agile, when we determine that we will be working in a cycle of 2 weeks, right? So that way we can adjust that. As far as milestone chart list is concerned, it identifies all possible milestones and indicates which are mandatory and which are optional. There are certain milestones which are mandatory and there are certain which are optional. Okay. I will leave you here. We will have a break of 10 minutes and then I will start from this slide on. Will that be okay?
Yep, sounds good.
Good.
Thanks, Suhail. See you in 10 minutes.
Let us look at the scope planning from both perspectives, predictive as well as agile. First of all, let's talk about the predictive project. In a predictive project, naturally, project manager is the boss. Project manager actually is responsible with his team to facilitate the collection of the requirement first, then document all the requirements, establish a scope statement, and ultimately develop a work breakdown structure, right? Based on that, once the WBS has been created and the scope has been established, then they start developing the schedule, the budget, resources, all those computations will have to be done as if they can deliver the requirements. This is how things happen in a predictive project. As far as Agile is concerned, we have got different roles. Actually, product owner carries a great weightage here. Product owner is the sponsor but still he has more responsibilities than a sponsor of predictive project. Why? Because product owner actively involves and engages himself with all the stakeholders to collect their requirements from them and to get the customer to give him the user stories. So in a way, product owner is more involved in the project, right? As compared to the project sponsor, which in a predictive project sponsor is just giving an order, creating a charter for the project manager, and then he on and off checks the progress of the project. That's all. But here, product owner, who is actually the sponsor, he has much more responsibilities. All the interaction with the customer, discussion with the customers, and receiving new requirements from the customer, this is a continuous process, and product owner is busy with that all the time. So the product owner is not a classical sponsor kind of a role. It is a more involved sponsor. It is a more involved person who is engaged with the project throughout the life of the project. So this guy is called product owner. He creates and refines release backlog for iteration planning meetings, and he explains each prioritized user story in detail to the team. When the team comes to pick up certain work for their next iteration, the product owner explains those high priority items to them as if it helps them to pick up the right work. But naturally, the highest priority item will be chosen only. So this is the role of the product owner to do that. As far as the team is concerned, you remember I said that teams in Agile are self-organizing, they are generalizing specialists, and their boss, who is the team lead, or you may call him the project manager, this person in Agile is just a servant leader, right? Unlike a predictive project where project manager carries all the authority, this team lead, who is actually the project manager of this, is not having any authority over the team. He could just help them, facilitate them, but cannot order them around. So what does a team do? Now, because they have to only plan for one iteration at a time, so it is a much easier job. So they estimate effort required and creates the iteration baseline. So first they spend some time in planning and then they baseline it. Baseline means that they have decided this is the work and this is how we are going to sequence it. So they estimate effort and then the user stories which have been picked up from the product backlog, they are now populating the iteration backlog, and in between the iteration backlog and the product backlog is a release backlog. For example, your project is to be released to the customer in 3 different release points. So one was the product backlog, then we have got separate backlogs for each release points. And within the release backlog, we have got iterations, and in iteration, we have its own backlog. Iteration backlog. The items we have picked up to do in this iteration are my iteration backlog. Now, you know how things happen in predictive and how things happen in agile as far as scope planning is concerned. Can you give me an idea what might a hybrid scope planning process look like? Can you explain it?
Um, so for hybrid, most likely the project manager will still have the scope statement.
Yes,
Um,
the outline plan is created by the project manager,
yeah. So there's
right?
an outline,
He does
even
create a project management plan, but that is not very detailed as it was in predictive,
yeah.
right? And as it moves downwards, they start converting to the agile setup. We have agile team, we have product owner, we have the team lead, and all that is happening in on the right hand side of the screen. They do all that. So this
And
is how predictive, agile, and hybrid works for scope planning.
so just to summarize,
Yes?
so in hybrid, so there's still the scope statement, but it's not but it's not as detailed as
Yeah, exactly.
predictive. And then for during development, it follows the agile iterative
Yeah.
process. And
There
then
is
on
a there is a scope baseline, but that is a broad scope baseline. They cannot go down to the WBS structure and all that. So
uh,
not like a predictive project, because the predictive project is completely dependent on the whole planning.
okay, okay, and then on the roles, because there is a scrum master
Hmm.
in agile, can the project manager, does the project manager typically become the scrum master,
Hmm.
or there's a
No.
separate product owner, or
Yeah.
how would the
Actually,
roles combine?
in
Yeah.
hybrid, we have got both levels of appointments. At the top, we have got a project sponsor and a project manager who are
Okay.
doing the outline planning. At the bottom, we have got a product owner, we have got a team lead, and we have got the teams, agile teams.
Okay.
So, incidentally, all the roles are present in hybrid.
Okay. Okay.
And who is the sponsor? The big sponsor is the one who is on top. Product owner is only concerned about his portion of work.
Okay. Okay. Oh, okay. Thank you. Hmm.
Okay, tell me which kind of project starts with requirements?
Which kind of project? I mean, which
Starts
type?
with
Predictive.
requirements.
Predictive. Does this
It is
pick?
predictive, right? In
Hmm.
predictive projects, requirements are elicited and set at the beginning of the project.
Hmm.
What about,
This one may be hybrid. No, no. User stories. Okay.
it is agile. This is
Okay.
agile,
Okay. Okay.
where the user stories are a different way of thinking about the requirement process. It is a completely
Okay.
different way. And hybrid is maybe because hybrid means they
Uh,
may elicit and refine requirements at top, and at the bottom we are working with the user stories. Got it?
got it.
Okay, coming to the requirement, what are they and why do we need them? A requirement is a one single measurable statement of a condition or capability we want to achieve, right? So every requirement may have a different statement and it should be always measurable. It should always be measurable. If our requirement is not measurable, then probably this requirement is of no use because we can't see how well I have we performed it. So it should be measurable and it tells how our product, service, our result is going to satisfy the business need ultimately. What was the business need? Based on which the business case was created by the business analyst. Give guidelines for use, start at a higher level before providing details. So when we are doing the requirements for a predictive project, we start at the higher level, have an outline plan in the beginning, and then we elaborate more on it. Whatever we plan, it must be unambiguous, meaning, like I said, measurable statement. So it should be measurable and testable. Each requirement should be measurable and testable, traceable, complete, consistent, and acceptable to the key stakeholders. So this is the importance of requirement. Now, in predictive project, we have many requirements, and those requirements are listed down in our requirement traceability matrix. Why do we call it traceability matrix? That each of these requirements can be traced back to their origin and forward to the product. But who gave this requirement? Why did they give this requirement? Does it satisfy the business need? Are there any opportunities or threats in it? And once we have determined which business need are we, this specific requirement is fulfilling, then we say, okay, what are going to be project objectives which are most important for this? Then we may have the work breakdown structure. An expert must be there in your organization who should be a person who actually deals with the project requirements. After we have done that, then we have various work breakdown structure values, and these values, work breakdown structure, is actually helpful in developing your detailed plan. So here we are trying to trace the requirement from this aspect, business need, opportunities, and objectives, from project objectives. What are the project objectives? Scope, time, and cost. What is most important for this specific requirement? Maybe it is time. In another case, it might be cost. Then which work breakdown structure deliverable is associated with this requirement? What is the product design, product development approach, and then you have to run the test cases. Okay, we have already talked about the configuration management. So configuration management does apply to requirements as well. So we will have a version control system. Like initially when this document was created, it was a single interaction. But when there are more than one requirement, we have to seek authorization for each one of the change approvals. Prioritization could be done, product metrics and accompanying rationale should be set. Traceability structure, when can you trace how much we have done? Profile. Okay, these are classical types of requirements in a predictive project. Meaning, first you tell us what is the project scope and what is the product scope. Now, this format or these topics which are given here, they are important to know. But the project and the product. Project is all the actions required and the processes required and conditions that most projects must meet. Right? As far as product is concerned, as we said, this is about the functions and features and characteristics of the product. So this project was what to do, and product is how to do it. Similarly, when we talk about the quality requirements, that conditions are criteria needed to validate the successful completion of a project deliverable effectively. Quality, the condition of our what do you call it? Where was I? Complete the project delivery or fulfillment of other project requirements. Now, this is about quality. Quality requirements could also be there. Then there are business requirements, which are high level, and these are the reasons why we are doing this project. Stakeholders, they may have some reporting requirements. You must understand that and provide them that data. And transition and readiness is usually when you are handing over the thing to the customer. It is not enough that you just hand over, but rather you look over their shoulder and see how well are they performing. So once you are collecting the requirements, these are some of the different skills, interpersonal skills, like nominal group technique, observation, and facilitation. In data gathering, you could do brainstorming, interviewing, focus groups, or maybe questionnaires and surveys. But as you move towards questionnaires and surveys, it becomes kind of more statistically important. Okay, what else we do? We do data analysis. We document several results. We debate on various alternatives available, and the product owner, if deliverable is product. Decision making techniques in Agile, we have this very common. Although this does apply to predictive also, but classically speaking, this should be in our decision making. So in decision making, we have different ways of doing that, like voting procedures, our multi-criteria decisions, our analysis. So this is how you estimate that what decision have to be taken. Then comes the data representation. How do you display this data on screen? It should be such a live, living document which should support.
Suhil, for the nominal group technique, can share a bit more on that?
Okay. Look here. Nominal group technique that enhances brainstorming with a voting process. There is a team. Team votes for the most appropriate method, right? It is gained through consensus, and every person carries a vote. Rather, I would say sometimes more than one types of votes, right? Maybe I will discuss it later, but that is like monopoly money. You have been given some fake currency which emulates your actual actions, and you have to somehow spend that money on the most important jobs. You decide what is on higher priority order. Then multi-criteria and decision analysis also you understand. This is when you are trying to make a decision, you must take some kind of statistical average, like the ones we have discussed earlier. Okay, as far as planning is concerned, how to collect the requirement. Broadly speaking, I would say that best way of collecting the data is through interviews. You know the key players and you go and discuss with them and try to find out what is most appropriate for them. Whereas questionnaires and surveys are used when we have got a larger group. Observations are made when we are visiting the customer site, and focus groups help us keep us aligned the organization.
Wait, sorry. For a focus group, this is like for light discussion. Is that what you mean?
Which focus group?
So
Yes.
sorry.
Yeah. Now, unlike interviews we are talking to one single person one by one,
Mm.
right? But in a focus group, where that one person doesn't hold all the data, so we put together a focus group, the groups of specialists who can answer all our questions, and in a meeting format, we start discussing it.
Okay.
That would be a focus group. Observation is only made even without the presence of the customer. You can read through their procedures, you can try to understand how do they work. So that is what is required for that. And facilitated workshop where a larger audience is available physically to attend your session. Similarly, we have got certain advantages of each one of them and certain considerations. You can go through it all by yourself. As far as data gathering is concerned, when we are talking about gathering data about the scope, we need to benchmark to generate product requirements. It requires best practices to make competition, because when we are comparing yourself with others, you don't say that because I am not well hit by this thing. So it requires best practices to make comparisons, evaluate and compare an organization's project practices with others, and as I said, identifies best practices in order to meet or exceed them. Anyways, now let's talk about the requirement prioritization. How do you prioritize the requirements, especially in Agile, when we are having iterations, and iterations, we have to pick certain user stories from the product backlog, and we have to sort them in order of priority, and then we pick up items from the top. So this could be a Moscow method. You could be using. Moscow stands for must have, should have, could have, and won't have. That means all those items which are must have, they are first priority, right? Should have are second priority, could have are third priority, and fourth one is not really very receptive. Just like Moscow analysis, there is another method which is called Kano model. In a Kano model, we are understanding and understanding and classifying all potential customers. So here we have just like we had must have, here we have delighters or exciters, those things which will excite the customer. That is a good thing. The next one is satisfier. Third one is dissatisfiers. Now, what is satisfiers? It is a soothing job. I enjoy doing it. But on the other hand, if we are not enjoying it, this is not even a prioritization method. Rate and rank alternatives by comparing one against the other. That is consulting the makeup document.
The ranking, Suhil, for the paired comparison analysis, like 1, 2, 3, or
Yeah. Paired comparison analysis is very simple. You have got a stack of cards. You pick up the top two cards and compare them and say which is more important, right? Then, which the card which has been selected, you compare it with the third card and again decide which is more important. And that way, if you keep doing it, ultimately the list of all the items will be prioritized.
okay, okay, okay.
100 point is monopoly money. I give you 100 artificial dollars and I tell you that these are the various points. You can vote with your 100 points. You can spend your 100 points anywhere. You can give all the 100 points to one choice, or you can distribute them in more than one options. But I would say that if we are doing to do this, we probably have to ensure that uh, what was it? Where was I? Yeah. So we when we are voting, we have to ensure that all the 100 points have been expended, right? So you may have given all the 100 points to one item, and there is another person who has divided into 60 points. 60 points he has given to one option, and 40 points he has given to second option. He did not consider the third option. So this is 100-point method. How do we represent our data? A beautiful way of representing our data, either in predictive or agile environment, is mind mapping. Mind mapping, what are the mind maps? Mind maps are diagrams which you create on the run. There are a lot many software applications which are available in which you can actually apply these things to your process. Affinity diagram allows large number of ideas to be classified for review and analysis. Okay, so I was talking about mind mapping. Consolidates idea created through individual or brainstorming session. Although we can't force it, but you see, the mind mapping is where we have got a structure defined, all the things will flow. And affinity diagram is about the absolute cost of that job, which we have computed. Context diagram is something like that. For example, you are the university and you are interacting with all of these entities. That is just not the matter of the thing that these are the only four people. who are asking for change. I would say this is more like a correlation. Your project is a university. What are the other entities your project is going to interact with? When you identify them, for example, if I am constructing a university, then there is a government aspect, there's a private sector, like industry work or UT, EDU, CA community, and then we have got user community. Now, what we are getting from them, product, uh, the government and the private sector might be providing the funding as a response to request for funding. With industry and education sector, we may have historical educational services or whatever is the prevalent zone today. User community will normally ask you to repeat for any request for hardware, software, and support. This is your user community.
So just a question. This context diagram, actually I mean, here it just indicates it's for predictive, but actually it can be used for adaptive as well because it just explains what the business situation looks like.
Right? Yes, of course. Why not?
Okay.
Prototyping. As we were discussing earlier about minimum viable product, that is prototyping. This prototype might not be a real life size. It could be a small model created, like I am constructing a 5-star building. So I can create a 5-star building model and then learn things out of it. What does the scope management plan includes? Naturally, it is in predictive. So scope management plan does these things. They conduct a review of scope identification for the project and how that will be there. This is scope management plan. Was it the slide I was talking about? Yeah. So review the scope activities for the project and how that work will be done. This you will have to decide. Should include processes to prepare a scope statement, right? Enable the creation of the work breakdown structure, as I told you earlier. Establish how the scope baseline will be improved and maintained. That is the baselining process. The scope will be baselined once all of that job is done. Then you specify how formal acceptance of the completed project or deliverable will be obtained. Last but not the least is, can we be formal or informal, broadly framed? Okay.
Just a question, Suhil. What does it mean? Like it specifies how formal acceptance of the completed project deliverables will be obtained. Does it outline, for example,
We
that
call
person should sign off, something like that?
we call it user acceptance.
Okay. So user acceptance criteria will be listed in the scope management.
Yes, yes, yes. This is your formal acceptance criteria which you have
Okay, okay.
established, and that whatever the deliverable you're creating, that will follow this rule.
Okay.
Now, scope management plan is a document which could be formal or informal, which could be broadly funded or some other way.
Okay.
So, in project scope statement, we have the scope description, we have the acceptance criteria, any required documents and deliverables, are any of the scope items needed for clarification, and ultimately constraints and assumptions. That must be clarified. Okay, we can have another break here.
Okay.
Okay, are you back?
Hello, hi Suhail. I'm back as well.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so we were talking about scope, and naturally, whatever we were talking, it was all about the predictive. In the previous slide, we talked about the scope management plan. Scope management plan tells us how to do everything about scope, how to do the baselining, how to do the formal acceptance. The procedure and the rules are set there. But your scope statement is actually the detailed document which specifies, according to the need of your project, what is your project scope, what is your product scope, what is your acceptance criteria, if there are any required deliverables here, anything which is out of scope, which is not to be done, and if there are any known constraints and assumptions, they could also be listed into the scope statement. You remember, you see, there is a difference between scope management plan and the scope statement. Scope management plan was the procedure. Scope statement is the explicit detail about this project, right? So, where the scope management plan was just telling us how to do things as far as scope is concerned, scope statement is exactly telling us what is the project scope, product scope, acceptance criteria, and etc. Now, based on this scope statement, we are going to develop our work breakdown structure. We'll talk about that. But first, let us look at these various tools and techniques. There are four tools and techniques given for scope planning. One is document analysis, alternative analysis, product analysis, and expert judgment. Can you somehow relate them with the definition? Because uh, the definition is not exactly written in front of it. What
Uh,
is the definition of document analysis? What do you think?
derive new project requirements from existing documents. So document analysis is the third match to the third one.
Which one?
And then, so document analysis is derive new project requirements from existing documents.
New project files from existing documents. Right. What about alternative analysis?
Uh, used to consider possible potential options or
Very
approaches.
nice. Very nice. What is product analysis?
Ask questions
Good.
about the product or form answers, and then
And
expert.
last one is the expert judgment.
Okay.
So I think that clarifies a lot many things here. Now, next slide is about product analysis methods. When you are trying to analyze the product, uh, these are some of the methods you use. First of all, I'll talk about the work breakdown, but let us first talk about the product breakdown. For example, you have to uh, build a car, then you say what are the parts of the car, what are the various systems in the car, how do they interact with each other. So I can break the whole project or the product into smaller pieces or parts. That is a product breakdown. But this breakdown is done from the product or orientation. If I am not looking at the product orientation and I'm trying to break down the work of my project, that would be called a work breakdown structure, which I'll define a little while later. But there are other concepts like requirements analysis, which you discussed it. What is requirement analysis? That is identifying, validating, and documenting specifications for the project. That is called the requirement analysis. Now there are two concepts on system side and two concepts on value. side. We have got systems engineering and systems analysis. You remember when I was talking about complexity, I said to analyze complexity, you have to understand system, uh, the system. A system composes of various components. Like a car is a system, and car is composed of various smaller parts. Those parts interact with each other as if the car can function. So, as the number of components or the number of interactions amongst those components have increased, it becomes a complex system. So, we need to understand the complexity of the system you are getting into. But how complex is your project? So, you must have a little knowledge about system engineering. It will discuss the approaches, design, integration, and management, and the life cycle of complex system in a multidisciplinary way. So you have to understand the system, and then you have to be able to analyze the system. Study a product or service to identify its goals, purposes, and create systems, public procedures to achieve them efficient. So it is all about complexity. Systems are all about complexity. First, the whole science of designing, integration, and management and the life cycle is systems engineering. And analysis is identifying its goals and purposes and creating systems or procedures to achieve them. Now, uh, related concepts are value engineering and value analysis. We have talked about the business value. We have talked about that whatever we do, it should generate some kind of value. So, value engineering is a discipline to optimize value in a structured way. Whereas value analysis examines factors affecting product or service cost in a systematic, interdisciplinary way towards success with the lowest cost and required quality and reliability standard. So we have to bring value. How can we bring value out of the project? That is through value engineering and value analysis. So both of the things are important: system engineering and system analysis, and value engineering and value analysis. Now coming over to the work breakdown structure, uh, I don't mind if you create a product breakdown structure or a work breakdown structure until the lowest level is a work package. The upper level breakdown could be based on product breakdown or could be based on work breakdown. But ultimately, if the lowest level is the work package, this is all right, a definition for a work breakdown structure. Actually, product breakdown concept came out of UK, the Prince 2 methodology. They did not have the terminology of work breakdown structure, but they used to break their projects according to the product, right? But at that time, PMI was using the terminology work breakdown structure, but they are clearly saying that work breakdown structure needs not be broken down according to the work completely, but at least the lowest level should be the work package. If I say that, then product breakdown and work breakdown, they meet at one place. So the breakdown would be what your project is, what are the major control accounts in it. Each control account may have certain work packages, or maybe there is a need for, what do you call that, rolling ware planning. There are certain portions of the work about which data is not available. So such portions are called planning packages, meaning that we will do the rolling wave planning later. Right now, we don't know, so we will leave it that as such. We'll not do this job until certain data becomes available. Once that data becomes available, we can then break down the planning packages into work packages. But otherwise, there could be directly work packages which are conceived, which are clear. So this branch, which comes here in the 1.1.1, this is a work package which is well understood, well explained, and we have directly assigned it as a work package. Whereas there was a portion of work which we don't know what is included in it, and we need to learn about it over time, and therefore we create it and we leave it there. This is our planning package. But when, after the rolling wave planning, things are clearer, then we can break it down into work packages. Does it make sense?
Yep, makes sense. So there will be, so just to clarify, so if it's possible, no, no. So as much as possible, all planning packages
Uh-huh.
need to be broken down into work packages. And a work package should
Yes.
already be
Actually, work package is
mhm.
the smallest unit of work.
Okay.
Work package is the smallest unit of work. Like, you are constructing a house. Uh, Construction of a wall could be the work package. But when I say smallest unit of work, that does not mean that it cannot be further broken down. The work packages can further be broken down into activities. The work package is a level of interest on which the project manager would like to get the report. How much of the wall has been constructed? Now, wall construction involves a lot many activities like bricklaying, like cement preparation, like many other things, plastering the wall, coloring the wall. All of this is the work package. But within that work package, we have got a lot many activities. But we are not talking about activities in a WBS. We are just talking about the wall. We are just talking about the work package. So we will have to break down our work breakdown structure down to the work package level, and we consider work package level is the smallest unit within the work breakdown structure.
And then is it possible to have nested work packages, meaning
And
within a
to
work
have
package,
what?
nested work package, meaning I have a work package and I have another work package underneath it, or no, because it's
No,
the
no,
lowest
no.
level. There's
A
a
work package is the smallest unit. Like, I have a house to construct. That is my project, right? That
mm,
house has got uh, 5 rooms,
okay,
right? I will control my budget by distributing it into control accounts. Every room is my control account.
okay,
Then that control account, every control account will be broken down to the work packages, if it can.
okay.
If it cannot be broken down, I will place it as a planning package. And when the data becomes available, I then break it into work packages. Whereas uh, those rooms which have got all the data is clear, I can directly convert them into work packages. Well, wherever there is a planning package, that means we are going to be using the rolling wave planning here. When the data about that becomes available, then we'll do it. Now,
Um,
construction of a wall could be a work package. Uh, Maybe the foundation could be a work package. The roof could be a work package. So you see, in each of these work packages, there could be actually, we have to perform many activities, right? So those activities are not shown in the WBS. Once we have created the WBS, and we go on to the next step, and that is when we start scheduling, we will start time calculations. That is where we have to break down the work package into activities. Then activities will be estimated and things will move on. Now, this is a generic mechanism how it can be broken down. Like project could be broken down into 5 control accounts: 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, and 1.5. Now, this control account, which is my room, this control account could have some requirements clear. So I will straight away convert them into work packages like 1.1.1 and so on. But the planning package, it cannot be broken down. So until that data is available, I will keep it as a planning package. And then under that planning package, I could have work packages. And you can see there is a numbering scheme going on. This numbering scheme is also required for controlling the account. This is also required that we can, the people who are dealing with accounts, they will say, okay, which work package you have done. I will not tell you the name of the work package. I will say, I have done 1.1.1. And that is sufficient for them. They say, okay, for 1.1.1, we had this much budget available. How much have you spent? So this is how we refer to the work packages. Decomposing the work breakdown structure, that is, as I have just described you identify the deliverables and the work task needed to accomplish them, structure and organize the WBS as you have seen it in the last diagram, decompose high-level WBS scope components into low-level components. Like, you break down the project into control accounts into work packages and planning packages into further work packages and things like that. The numbering system is called code of accounts. That 1.1.1 is a code of account. Whenever somebody has to refer to that 1.1.1, they will say the code number of that code of account number. What is a WBS dictionary? Once your WBS has been created, you then list down all the work packages in a list. You say 1.1.1 is this activity and 1.1.2 is this, this work package. So list down all the work packages and describe them briefly. That document is called WBS dictionary. I hope you understand that. So in WBS dictionary.
Oh, sorry, just to clarify this. So there's a WBS dictionary that the project manager needs to create. Is it separate or it's in the WBS too?
What is in WBS?
No, I mean the WBS dictionary. It's not a separate. It shouldn't be a
It
separate.
is a separate document. Actually, WBS dictionary comes out of WBS. WBS is a chart with boxes linking each other, just like I have shown you.
Okay.
Like this.
Okay.
But then we look at only all the work packages and compile of list of all the work packages. And that list could be in this format. There could be a code, a WBS code identifier like code of account, that is 1.1.1. Then we say, what is this work package? Then we say, are there any assumptions or constraints in it? Who is responsible organization for this? What are the scheduled milestones in this? Associated schedule activities and so on and so forth. Now, I am not saying that all of this data can be filled right now, but at least you can create the columns, and when that data becomes available, you can write it down into the work packages. Then, once all of these things are finalized, the scope statement is created, the WBS is created, the work packages and planning packages are created, and the WBS dictionary is created. All of these things put together, consolidated in one document, is called a scope baseline. And for a baseline, it is important that you must have, presented it to your higher level management, and they will approve it. They will allow you that, okay, your baseline is okay, and we approve it, and now you can start working on it. That is my scope baseline. Last but not the least, we have to not to forget to plan for transition and handover, because this could be a major requirement. Whatever we have created for you, we have to implement that in your premises, in your workspace. How does the scope planning happen in an adaptive project? Now, this is greatly simple. We don't create a WBS at all. In an adaptive project, in an agile project, we don't have our WBS at all. We just have the product backlog where all the requirements are coming in. And then we have got the kind of a progress flow, which is called the to-do chart, or you can call it the work progress. So in that, we have got 3 columns. All the work which is to be done in this iteration is in the to-do column in the beginning. Then we pick up certain number of items from to-do list and we start working on them. This is work in progress. And whatever jobs have been completed so far, they are in the done column. Do you get that?
This is the Kanban board, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Actually, Kanban board or task board, you can call it. Task board is more appropriate name, but we also call it Kanban board because Kanban means it is lean. Kanban is a lean terminology. It is not a purely agile terminology.
Okay.
Okay. Release and iteration planning. In agile, we do that when we develop the product roadmap. When we develop the product roadmap, which is a timeline from the start till the end of the project, this timeline may be further subdivided into release points. Our release points, when we are supposed to deliver something to the customer, that is called a release point. So we put all our milestones there, and according to that, then we try to accomplish. Number of iterations are sprints needed to complete each release. How many iterations are required to do this release? For example, let me show it to you. For example, you have got this start and end of the project. And this is your agile project. The customer wants the release points to be like this. These are 4 release points. So, release point 1 is 6 month long. Release point 2 is 3 month long. Release point 3 is 5 month. And release point 4 is Good one. If that is the case, what is generally the size of an iteration? What should be the size of an iteration?
Maybe a month.
Maximum a month and minimum 1 week, right? Okay, but we must try to keep the size of iteration as low as possible. But at the same time, let us see if there are, no, we keep it as 4 weeks or 1 month. That means if it is 1 month or 4 weeks, it will be 6 iterations in release 1, 3 iterations in release 2, release 3 will have 5, and release 4 will have 4. So the total number of iterations will be 6 plus 3 plus 5 plus 4.
18.
15 weeks. That is if it is 4 weeks. If it is 3 weeks, then what? How many weeks are there in 6 months? If 1 month has got 4, that is
24, 24 weeks.
24 weeks. And that means if the cycle is 3 weeks, there will be 8 iterations here. Plus, here we will have how many? 12.
Sure.
4
Yeah,
iterations.
4 iterations.
And what about this? 20. Now, this cannot be evenly divided, right? 20 divided by 3,
Around
that
6.
is 6.8.
8, yeah.
And then 4 months, 4 into 4, 4 into 4 is 16. 16 divided by 3, this is not also not equal,
5.3.
5.3. So that means this is uneven. What if we have iteration fixed as 2 weeks? That means we will have 12 iterations here, 6 here, 10 here, and 8 here. Is it all right? That means we will have how many iterations? 36 iterations. Now, we have done it on 4, 3, 2, and let us do it on one week also. If it is 1 week, it is 20. It's going to be 24 plus 12 plus 20 plus 60, which is equal to 72. Now, what size of iteration would you like to keep? Naturally, not 3, because it has uneven number of iterations. 4 is too big. 1 is too small. So probably I would decide, based on this specific project and the number of releases, that I will fix the iteration size to be 2 weeks. This decision is made once. It cannot be changed. When the agile project starts, if the decision is to have an iteration of 2 weeks, then it should be 2 weeks. Well, actually, I should not have any objection on 4 weeks also, because that is also doable. But that means we are having larger iterations and we should have smaller iterations, right? Two is an average. I have a good option 1, 2, or 4 weeks. So 4 is too big, 1 is too small, and 2 is most appropriate. So I decide that my iteration size is going to be 2 weeks. This is how we make this decision. And you see, where do we make this decision? On the roadmap. Roadmap we just created. Based on that, I define the releases. I decide how much duration each release will carry and how many iterations there will be. So there will be 36 iterations in this case. Got it? So number of iterations are sprints needed to complete each release. We have decided that features contained in the release. Now, when I say one release, say first release was 6 months long, what all are the major features which have to be completed? We must be very clear about it. Then goal dates of each release. When do we expect that this release is going to be finished? Once we have done the product roadmap, we move on to the product backlog. Now, actually, the backlogs are of three types. One is called the product backlog. Another is called the release backlog. And then we have got the smallest unit, which is the project backlog. So these backlogs actually contain the requirements in form of user stories. If these user stories are too long, for example, one of the user stories is 2 months long, I would say this is too much. I cannot have this one because I want to go for the variable size. So you probably will go and decide on a lower number of iterations. Then we have got user stories, story maps, and road maps. User story is the statement of the requirement, functionality we need, statement of that requirement. And we have to map these user stories on the roadmap and we should move ahead. This is how it may look like. Actually, your user story is like these yellow stickers. These are the user stories. So these are the user stories. User stories are coming out of various features. So each feature may have one or more than one user stories in it. As far as the minor deliverable or epics are concerned, epics are the long stories told by the customer who is unable to define things into that level of detail which we thought. Okay. So do you understand this?
Yep.
Epics,
Yep. So far it's clear. Yes.
okay. Epics are big user stories. I mean, not user stories. They are the statements by the customer which are lengthy and which could be broken down into various features. Features could be broken down into user stories. So our feature may represent one user story or more than one user stories. Meaning, a feature can be uh, completed in a single user story or more than one user stories. An epic could be divided into various features, right? So this is the story of epic feature and user story.
Okay.
Once we have all these user stories, actually epics are unrefined. We call epics as unrefined user stories because epics could be as long as 2 months, 3 months long. So we can't have them in an iteration. Iteration is just 2 weeks. So within 2 weeks, we have to break the epics down to features and features down to user stories. Actually, the content of product backlog is only the user stories. If there is an epic in the product backlog, we call it, or a feature in the product backlog, we call it unrefined, and we have to break it down. So classically speaking, the backlog, product backlog, must only have user stories, which are much smaller than the iteration size. If the if our iteration size is 2 weeks, then there should be no work which is larger than a couple of days. Every user story should be doable in 2, 3, 4, or 5 days. That way, we can accommodate, because we are multiple people, we are 10 people, so we can accommodate kind of, say, around 20 user stories, around 20 user stories in an iteration. But this is not the way of making a decision. Actually, some user stories can be difficult, some user stories can be easier. Therefore, we have to decide what is the level of difficulty of each user story, based on which I would determine how many user stories can I take up in one iteration. Now, this concept is clear now?
Yes, yes, yes. This one is clear.
Now once we have all the user stories, we have to prioritize them. We have to get back to the customer and ask them which of these user stories you think is the most important. So what customer says that this is the most important user story, that goes on the top of the list. And we reorder all the user stories in that manner that the topmost item is to be done first, and then the second, then the third, then the fourth, and that's how we do go about. Now, when it is time for doing the iteration, the team, the team goes to the product owner and goes to the product backlog, and they give the level of difficulty of the high priority items, and based on that, they say, okay, this is a very difficult story, so this will take more time or money. So therefore, I will, you know, I will dedicate time for it, time and energy for it. Another user story could be very simple and small. It could be done in half a day. So yes, of course. So we determine how much effort is required. Now, the interesting part is, unlike a predictive project, agile project doesn't go into the detailed estimations and calculations. It works on presumptions. It assumes a lot of things. Actually, whenever we are making an estimate, we are presuming to the best of our knowledge. So if we understand that whatever we are saying may not be accurate, then let us change the mechanism and arbitrarily assign the level of prioritization to each story and give them an order to happen. Okay, there are a few questions here. Which two stakeholders perform project scope planning? I mean, we are talking about a hybrid project. So who name
Ang Fen, the product manager, and Helen Gray, the product owner.
AgFan project manager and the project team, they are responsible
Oh,
for the work scope planning.
oh,
You see,
okay.
user product backlog is not scope planning.
Okay, okay. For project scope planning. Okay, okay. So it's not creating the project scope, but
Yes.
planning to do the work already. Okay. Overview of the work ahead should be if it's hybrid, the
This is a hybrid project.
product roadmap.
Yes. Product roadmap. Right. Right.
Yeah,
You're right.
yeah.
Okay. Uh, sorry. Okay. Project manager informs the project sponsor that the project plan will continuously increase the level of detail as the project moves forward. In project management, what is this process called?
Progressive elaboration.
Good. Our business is unclear on the direction and when features are to be expected for an agile managed project. What project artifact helps communicate the goals, milestones, and potential deliverables, releases, or other work outputs?
Product roadmap.
Okay, again, the product roadmap,
Mhm.
which is the best illustration technique to use when your project team wants to facilitate a discussion with a criteria set by users. To get a better understanding on how they might use your project.
Focus group.
Focus group. Good. Our project team is reviewing the requirement documentation that they are responsible for working on. Which project artifact can they reference to see the connection between the requirement and the business end project? Yes.
Requirements and the business project objective. Requirements.
Which
The project, the the scope management plan.
scope management plan is just the
Uh,
rules and principles.
okay, so project charter should be project charter.
The correct answer is requirement management plan. It is how we trace the requirements.
Okay, okay. So, the connection between the requirements and the business process objective. Okay, okay, understand. Brainstorming would be a appropriate technique. Um, to so identifying and prioritizing options.
Yes. Which of the following is an agile method to prioritize project objectives, features, user stories, and tasks?
Moscow analysis.
Moscow, very good. Your company is designing a game for families. They test whether the game is easy enough for children by creating a prototype and then establishing their test criteria. Now they create test groups of 100 boys and 100 girls between the ages of three, less than three.
Okay.
In 5 50 seconds process. What do you
This
say?
is this design of experiments?
Okay.
Oh, or no? Oh,
The
statistical sampling.
you could make it out. This is doing the statistical sampling. It has taken a sample size of 100 boys and 100 girls.
Okay, 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 okay.
What is the purpose of decomposing the project work within the hierarchical WBA structure?
Should be letter A. Letter A.
A. Why? A business is anxious to get a promotion portion of the project's creation out into the marketplace to get end user feedback and impression before the entire product is finished. What must the project team establish for their releases to end users?
Minimum viable product? But, mm, okay, so it's more to get more requirements. Yes, so minimum viable product.
Uh, right. So we are done with this. I suppose we can start schedule tomorrow.
Okay, sounds good.
You have any questions so far?
So far still good.
Okay, great. So let us meet tomorrow at the
Yup,
same
thanks.
time. Thank
Thanks,
you very
Suri.
much.
Get
And
well
take
soon. Take care.